Alrighty, here's what we're going to do today. I want you to take a look at your test, okay? I gave you some feedback on some things I want you to look at, and this is your opportunity to get some hints, depending on which ones I've marked that I want you to look at again before you hand it in for your final. All right? Some of these questions were a little misleading, had a little bit more to it, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to take a look at it, read it carefully, and give it a good once over before you turn it in for good. All right? So let's start with question number 1, and let me get this up here on full screen. So just a moment. Boom, boom. Where did I go? Here. No, I don't want to open. Oh, I can't see this. All right. Crazy. All right, here we go. All right, so look at number 1. Okay, here they're giving you a situation and they want to know what the unit rate is per hour. So when you're looking at this, make sure that you're not being Speedy Sally. Read the question carefully and go from there. Look at number 2. Question number 2 talks about what speed is the fastest, but here's where they're messing with you, okay? In order to compare things, you need to have the same units in each situation, all right? So we're talking about a distance over time here. And when we're doing that distance over time, you need to have the same distance, and they didn't give you the same distance, feet, yards. So you have to decide what you want to use, okay? I will give you this information. There are 3 feet in every 1 yard. So do some converting there as you're getting ready to set this up. The other thing is that some of them are minutes and some of them are hours. Okay, so you have to make a decision. Do I want to get all of these written as, say, feet per minute, or do you want it feet per hour? Do you want it yards per minute, yards per hour? You decide, but you need to get everything the same, all right? And then you can actually tell me which is the biggest. But you can't just pick an answer here. You need to show your work. So in other words, give me each one of these converted into unit rates so you can make a decision about comparison. Show some work there. Number 3. This one talks about unit price. Notice all of your answers are dollars per pound. So make sure when you're comparing these that you're starting with dollars in the numerator and pounds in the denominator. Number 4, you've got to show me some work here. If there is a constant rate of change, that means it's a proportional relationship. And that means that there is some value that we call K, this constant number, that is multiplying your X value every single time, and that gives you your output or your Y value. And the top row is the X value, okay, and the money, the bottom row in your table, is the Y value. Okay, so you've got to ask yourself, 6 times some magical number is 225. 12 times what gives you 450? 18 times what gives you 750? Is it exactly the same each time? And you actually have to check that in all 3 of those, all 3 of those, all of those, and last but not least, all of these, okay? Show your work so you can see, is there a constant rate of change? If it's not super obvious, then what we do is just say, is there this K? What you could do is divide by X. If you can look at the Y value divided by the X value every single time and see if you get the same thing. There you go. All right, next. Question number 5. Okay, they want the equation. If X is the number of weeks, they're saying, what is the magic number, this constant, that I multiply the weeks by? This is the X value. And that tells me what my cost is or how much money I've spent each time. So you know that you've been given some information, you figure out which one of those situations works. For 6 and 7, use the same graph. Make sure you read the entire question, would you? So for number 6, it says draw a line through the points. So do it. Draw the line through the points. Then it says, why does this line show a proportional relationship? We've talked a lot about this. What makes it proportional? Answer and choose the best one for this situation. For number 7, it says, what is the constant of proportionality? That's that K value again. That's your multiplier. I would recommend when you look at this graph, you might want to come back up here and start looking. Okay, when X is 2, that one's a little difficult. In fact, these dots really aren't on any line until you really get to 8 hours gives us 28, and really it's thousands, but you can just think of it as 28 labels printed. So take a look and now see, using that information, if you can tell what's the constant of proportionality. Last but not least, on question number 8, they're saying, when is this fraction with some any number a, any number b, when is this going to be equal to an integer? Do you remember what integer means? Well, let me develop the list of the set of all integers. Integers start off by including all of the whole numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But they also include the opposites, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay? So this is asking you, notice every single answer choice has to do with b, which is the denominator. So what would b have to be equal to force a divided by that value to be an integer? See if you can figure it out. That's kind of a good thinking challenge question. Moving on. Okay, once again, notice what they did here. 3/4 of a mile. In here it says 6 minutes. Here it says 1/10 of an hour. Okay, do you see what's happening here with these units? They want hours, so this is telling you I'm going 3/4 of a mile in 1/10 of an hour. Now figure out what would these values have to be. See if you can figure them out. Number 10, again, it's this minutes and hours thing. So if you're talking about I can go 2.4 miles in 10 minutes, I want you to think about that as how many hours is 10 minutes. Or maybe you want to think of it this way. I'm going 2.4 miles in 10 minutes. So how far would I go in 1.5 hours? Figure out how many minutes that is. 11, I noticed that some of you were a little stumped by this. I would just want you to write in words how you would simplify this. What would you push in your calculator? What would you do? And then what does then that answer that you get mean? Look at your labels. Question number 12, find K, the constant of proportionality. In other words, 25 times something gives you 160. 50 times something gives you 320. Okay? So identify what K is. Tell me what it is. Then, you're not done yet. Then you should write an equation. Y equals what? Blah, 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 blah. Okay? Go from there. Number 13. Now here is what I noticed a little tricky here. Create a table that shows a proportional relationship. So you get to make up anything you want. You invent some value for K so that when you multiply your inputs, this, you'll get some specific output. But don't forget the second question. Please do not use an integer. Remember what the integers were? The integers, or we have them listed out. Okay? The integers are these numbers here. Right down here. These are the integers. They're saying don't use one of those for K. You've got to pick something else. All right, last but not least, the last page. The car is traveling at a constant speed of 45 miles per hour. Make a graph to show how this distance traveled in miles is related. So you have to graph this, okay? When you aren't given your numbers to actually plug in, but you have the equation, or this information, you should be able to create a table of input and output. This is hours, this is miles, and you simply know that they're traveling 45 miles an hour. Fill it out, do some graphing, connect the dots. All right, the last couple questions here. Here's a graph. What equation shows the line through these data points on the graph? Here's what I would say. It looks like this one, and this one are traveling, and it hits that exact intersection of a value. So, X is weeks. Your Y coordinate stands for money. At 2 weeks, how much money have you got? At 4 weeks, how much money have you got? 6 weeks, how much money? Okay? Write an equation that shows this situation. Okay? Then, once you've got that, then they want you to write an equation for someone who's saving more money a week. So you determine what this equation is, then use that information to come up with someone who's saving more, and then add that line to this graph. Okay, show me what it would look like. Very last thing, an object travels 4 miles in 1/2 hour. What is its speed? Usually you want your speed to be written in miles per hour. So see what you can do with that one. Make sure you label it. All right, good luck. May the force be with you.